Ladies, if you are dating a man and your ultimate dream is to be a homemaker, and you have expressed this to that man, and that man says living off of one income is one, impossible, two, outdated, and that it is more realistic to live off of 50-50, meaning you both split the bills and the responsibilities around the house, just know that is that man's way of telling you he does not want to be a provider. He does not have what it takes to do what is needed to provide for you and your family. You shouldn't have to convince a man to be a provider. Some men just aren't providers, and that's okay. However, if your dream is to be a homemaker, do not continue wasting your time with this type of man. There are plenty of men out there that make this lifestyle realistic, and they do what needs to be done. They might work more than one job. A masculine provider man will always do what he needs to do to protect and provide for his family.
I'm Jennie Gage, and this is Life Take Two. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube, and I always appreciate you stopping on one of my videos. My name is Jennie, and I am former MAGA, former Trump obsessed, former Christian nationalist, former white supremacist, former Tradwife of 24 years, and before those 24 years of Tradwife life, my whole entire childhood was a Tradwife immersion program. So honestly, I spent 44 years in the trad world, and then 7 years ago, I lost my faith in the Mormon church, walked out of that one day. 2 weeks later, that 24-year marriage ended abruptly, and my 24-year nightmare came to an end. I'm now a woke, atheist, liberal, feminist, activist, and here we are. So this weekend, I dropped a video where I stated that tradwives are parasites, like black widow spiders. I've seen some great conversations going on in the comment section of that video, as well as some questions. So I wanted to just add a few more thoughts and a little bit of clarification on that video. So either you can watch this first and go back and watch that, or you can put this on pause and go over there first. So first, I wanted to answer one question that I get sometimes in my comment sections, and that is, why do I always put that little blue butterfly emoji and the little turquoise heart? What's that all about? My handle, Life Take Two, it has a cute little ring to it, but it actually has a really dark origin story. Let me share a really brief version of the dark origin story. When my entire life came crashing to the ground in 2018, I wasn't happy. I had lost my faith in the Mormon church. 2 weeks later, my Mormon returned missionary husband ended our marriage, abandoned our family, and the post-separation abuse was really brutal. And I went through this several-month time period where I lost all of my money. I would be evicted from my home. I would eventually lose my vehicle. I would lose my dog. I would temporarily lose my children. I had no income. When our marriage ended, he cleaned out our entire bank account, and I was left eating out of food pantries. And my whole entire Mormon family was very rapidly shunning me. When you become a Mormon apostate, all of your Mormon friends tend to run away. All of these events were devastating. So in December of 2018, I attempted to take my life. I am a suicide survivor. After waking up from a coma, I spent 2 weeks in recovery. And one day I was just sitting, bawling my eyes out. And one of the staff in his little scrubs came over and sat down next to me. And he said, "It really makes me sad when I see a woman like you in here who has so much going for her and will probably have a happy future sometime down the road once you get through all this, and then tries to end everything." And he said, "You need to realize that the sun will come out from behind the clouds and you will be happy again." And I just started crying. And I told him, it's not just that I got divorced and my husband cheated on me. I lost everything. I've lost my mom. I've lost my dog. I can't buy food for my kids. My life is over. And here's where my Life Take Two came from. He said, "What if your life's not over? What if you're like filming a movie with Ron Howard?" And he was just like, "Cut. We don't like that. We're going to scrap that. We're going to start over again and do it all different. Take two." He said, "What if it's like your Life Take Two and now you're just going to reshoot?" That's the origin of Life Take Two. And that conversation would absolutely change my mindset and change my life. And it's funny, over the next couple of days, I just started picturing like, yeah, like what if I was actually the caterpillar and not the butterfly? What if everything the last 44 years, I was just this little fuzzy caterpillar stuck in a leaf, I couldn't go anywhere. And this is the cocoon. And now I'm coming out of the cocoon and I'm this big, beautiful, and I always pictured a turquoise butterfly. So that's why that little turquoise butterfly is always associated with my life take two. And my motto from that moment on has been, I woke up with wings. And I used to sell stickers and merch and stuff that had that. Maybe I should go find those and bring those back. So that's that little emoji. The little turquoise heart emoji. I am happy now, but I had a soul-crushing 7-year climb to get here. And there were so many times when I like wanted to text a friend or something, and I'm like, all these pink hearts and red hearts, they just don't represent me. They seem too cheerful. I need a heart emoji that also represents a little bit of depression. So the turquoise heart is it. That's like hesitating love, because the pink hearts and the red hearts just look too cheerful. And also, you guys know that I love my turquoise. So that's what those emojis are about. They're my life take two emojis. All right, the next questions I'm going to answer as part of this conversation. Tradwives are predators. Like black widow spiders, I absolutely stand by that. And for anyone who's arguing that, you have not lived in a biblical, traditional family community. Maybe you have, and you've had your head in the sand the whole time. This is actually one of the reasons why you see women so competitive within these communities. And I just kind of think of the Secret Lives of Mormon wives and like the hunting wives and Real Housewives and some of those scenarios where the women are really catty and competitive because their whole entire life is weaponized femininity. They're groomed from birth to be highly competitive and predatory. It's one of the reasons why these religious patriarchal structures are so damaging to female relationships, because it weaponizes woman against woman. They're all competing for the same resources. Those resources are the men who are going to provide literally everything for them. Rather than teaching women to be autonomous and independent and self-reliant and cooperative and all of the good, healthy things that humans naturally have within really healthy tribal systems, patriarchy weaponizes women and turns us into like those tracker jacks from the Hunger Games, always out there hunting, and specifically hunting for men. Let me just contrast here matriarchies with patriarchies. In matriarchal systems, we partner with other women instead of just seeking out the best provider and then competing against other women to land him. Because if women are also able to independently and autonomously hold power, and they don't need a man to be power adjacent, it strips out the female competition for men. This cooperativeness and non-competitiveness in matriarchies is really beautiful because it spills over to so many different aspects of life. Matriarchies tend to care about Mother Earth and our planet more. We don't waste water. We don't fill our landfills. We don't build and buy disposable goods. We don't hoard resources. We don't exploit one another. That all changes in a patriarchy because we are all on the prowl, hunting for the best husband. It's part of why I stand by my use of the word predator. Tradwives are predators, like black widow spiders. Because if you think of a predator, for instance, I just saw a roadrunner grab a big lizard when I was out on my jog the other day. That roadrunner consumed the resources in the form of the actual body and the resulting energy of that lizard. The Latin root of the word predator is predat, and it's one who takes plunder, plundered being resources, things like household goods. And you guys, men are the plan for a woman's whole life in these communities. Now, I've spoken in other videos about how I grew up in pretty abject childhood poverty, and I was not raised in any way to provide for myself. In fact, the Mormon doctrine teaches that women are supposed to stay home. Prophets have specifically said, come home from the typewriters, come home from the laundromats, come home, raise your children. It was against the commandments to put your children in daycare. One of the Mormon prophets said that divorce started when women began to go out into the workforce. So I didn't invent the patriarchy. I was just born into it and forced into it, really against my will. But here's the thing. When humans become prisoners, they will do anything to get their needs met, even if they have to exploit somebody else. I became a predator precisely because I was kept inside of this cage of the Mormon patriarchy. So the only way for me to escape poverty, the only way for me to have a nice home and a new car and the ability to buy the things that I wanted was to hunt down and make sure that I secured the best provider for a woman like me. I didn't have a career plan. I didn't have any future plan. The right man was my plan. That was the plan that the patriarchy gave me. And it's funny that even growing up, I didn't think anything about his personality. I didn't understand attachment styles. I wasn't ever taught what type of personality might be compatible, what type of background might be best suited for me. Like in my head, when I thought about growing up and getting married, I actually planned the type of cars that I wanted to drive, the type of house that I wanted to live in, where I wanted to live, the vacations that I would go on, how I would decorate that house, the cute little outfits that my kids would wear. That was top of mind. There was absolutely nothing about the relationship or the interaction between myself and my future husband that ever popped into my head. Not ever. It was all about the stuff that I was going to plunder from him. And when you think about it, like that culturally is every love story. Cinderella is sitting in the ashes and she can't like get a job or go out and start some little dairy enterprise or something, or just run away and make it on her own. The only way Cinderella is going to get out of that fireplace and away from the mice is if she marries the prince. And we don't know anything about his personality. He's this just blank slate dancing around the ballroom floor, but we know that she's going to end up in the palace. For those of you who watched my video and disagreed with me completely and said Tradwives are not predatory, they're all just stuck. Well, yeah, they are stuck in the cage and that cage makes them predatory. And I would say if you do not believe that these women who are either future hopeful Tradwives, like the Trad girlfriend hoping to put a ring on it, or the actual already married Tradwives, if you don't think that they are predatory, then you have never gone to a Mormon college. I went to BYU, Idaho. I started college in 1992, and I'd imagine like Baptist colleges and some evangelical colleges are a little bit like this too. Everybody in my community, when I was getting ready to leave for college, joked about, oh, you're going to get your Mrs. degree. I knew that that was a place to go find my dream husband, the guy who was going to put me in the big house in Scottsdale, Arizona. And that was top of mind. Now, I am high IQ and really hard work. And if I had not been raised in that situation, I would have had a very different life. And there were times when I tried to create a life for myself that I had never been outfitted to be able to build, but I had never been trained in any way to make a life for myself. So it was really just outside of my wheelhouse. And again, I would have been going against Mormon doctrine. But I decided when I was getting ready to go to college that maybe I would try to be an attorney. I was 17 years old when I went to college. I was just such a young girl. But I signed up for pre-law and political science classes, and before the internet, I just talked to friends and people, and there were a couple of dads of some of my friends who were attorneys, and they were just saying, you know, international trade is a big deal right now, and because the Iron Curtain had just fallen, the Russian language is huge. So I declared Russian as my major and decided that I was going to maybe not get married, but try to become a Russian-speaking international trade attorney. So my parents dropped me off at Rick's College, and I go see my counselor the couple days before school starts, as like making sure that all of your schedule is correct and paying all of your fees and stuff. I sat down with my Mormon counselor. He went through my schedule. I had 21 credits in pre-law, political science, and Russian. And he said, why your schedule? Can you please explain this to me? And I said, I don't know, international trade attorney. This man, who was my college counselor, said, Sister Fisher, Heavenly Father has commanded you to be a wife and a mother. And this schedule is not the type of schedule that I would give a girl, because either you're going to pursue this career and then you're not going to become a wife and mother, and that's literally what Heavenly Father created you for, or you're going to have a bunch of useless classes and then you are going to get married and not have anything that would be worthwhile as a wife and a mother. So my college counselor took out half of my classes. He gave me dating and marriage. You can Google this. It's still on the BYUs as a class. He gave me an early childhood development class and a Book of Mormon class and sent me on my way. I guarantee you a lot of girls inside of the MAGA movement, a lot of evangelicals, a lot of Baptist girls, they may not be sitting down with a college counselor, but they're having this conversation from grandmas and moms and Christian school teachers and youth group leaders that their role is to be a mom. So the hunt began. I'll tell you, at BYU, Idaho, it was wild how aggressive the women are. Some hot guy would come home from his mission and show up on campus, and it was literally like piranhas in the water hunting this guy down. And who got that guy? The most skilled hunter. The prettiest, the smartest, the one whose parents had trained to be the best future Tradwife, the one who had kept herself pure, the one who kept herself in shape. And I will tell you that literally, rather than focusing on school, like I'm smart, I love to learn, and I was paying my own way in college. So I did take my classes seriously, but I knew that I was never going to use them. All of my focus was on dating. And the church schools are just the giant meat markets. So they are completely focused on hooking the girls up with the guys. There are dances, there are all kinds of dating opportunities and concerts and different things going on all the time. Honestly, I think the only reason why the Mormon church pushes women to get an education at all is so that they'll be at college so they can find a husband. Because it's where like everyone that I knew met their husbands. There's this crazy thing that we did at BYU, Idaho that I don't know if any other religion does this, but they had these ring lighting ceremonies where if you got engaged, then like you'd tell your dorm mom and dad, and everyone would meet in the big like game room of your dorm, and they'd have a candle and you'd put your engagement ring on it and you'd pass it around the circle a couple times, and everyone's like in anticipation, like, oh, who got engaged? And then when it gets to you, you blow that candle out and then everybody screams. And they're like, yeah, she found her man. She found her eternal companion. We had a couple ring lightings a month. Sometimes there were like 5 or 6 a month. One question that I've gotten on my social medias for a long time whenever I talk about being Mormon is just like, why are Mormon girls so pretty? And even if they aren't pretty, then they work their damnedest to make themselves pretty with the extensions and the eyelashes. And they don't eat anything except for swig soda and crumble cookies. And it's always like the spray tan and the bleach teeth. Like Mormon girls are super obsessed with their looks. And there's a reason for that. Why are Mormon girls so pretty? Have you ever fly fished? You have to use specific bait depending on what type of fish you're trying to catch. Young women in these biblical, traditional Tradwife communities are bait. The prettier you are, the tanner you are, the whiter your teeth are, the bigger fish you're going to catch. I bleached my teeth so often that I had burned my roots, and I came from a really poor family. So when my student loan money started to kind of dwindle at the end of the year, I sometimes didn't have enough money to buy laundry detergent and toilet paper and all of the food and stuff that I needed. But I made damn sure that I always spray tanned and that I always had the best outfits on because I was hunting. Those Mormon girls, they're obsessed with their looks because it's the bait for the easy life. I think of myself during my college days as like a pet looking for a good owner to take me home. Or a sugar baby trying to attract her sugar daddy. And I was looking for very specific criteria, none of which was how it felt to be in this person's presence. Some of the criteria was like daddy was a doctor or a dentist or ran a successful business. They grew up in a really huge family home. Their parents drove luxury vehicles. Returned missionaries because they had that work ethic and they were super righteous. So I knew that they were probably going to be blessed. Athletes, again, because of the work ethic and scholarships, and maybe they're going to go on to be professional athletes after college. Also things like where they lived on campus, like if they were just in the dorms on campus, which were a little bit cheaper, or if they were in some of the fancy apartments off campus. I typically only dated guys in this one cluster of apartments because that's where all of the rich kids. At Rick's College, which is BYU, Idaho, I think it was called Aspen Ridge or Alpine Meadows or something like that. And then, of course, the major was really, really, really important. So if somebody was just doing like general education or like just majoring in music or something like that, then I would not date those guys. I dated the guys who were pre-med, pre-law, business management, political science, I dated a guy who is studying to become a geneticist. One guy that I dated was a returned missionary from Scottsdale, Arizona, from a really affluent area. His dad was a doctor. He was a quarterback at the football team. He wanted to be a pediatrician when he grew up. And he was gorgeous, so I knew that our kids would be beautiful. This stuff is so embarrassing to talk about. I really don't want any of your judgment in my comment section. This is one of the reasons why Mormons and other Mormon-adjacent type of communities, a lot of the little MAGA girlies get married so young and so quick, because I wasn't ever taught, again, like attachment styles or personality types or anything like that, any type of compatibility. I was just hunting for the best provider. So you meet somebody and you're like, he's hot. We have a little bit of chemistry. We've known each other for 2 weeks. And I know that I'm going to have the big house with a doctor. Boom, done. I think it's one of the reasons why they have such crappy marriages, because these women are just hunting the providers. Case in point, just look at Hannah Neeleman. Here's Hannah's house growing up. Here's Daniel Neeleman's childhood home. Come on. His dad is the Steve Jobs of the airline industry. He is richer than some small countries. They were engaged within, I think it was 2 weeks. They were married within a couple months. She didn't have to know anything about his personality. She saw the life that she was going to live with this man. It's predatory. You know that matchmaker scene in Fiddler on the Roof? When the matchmaker is presenting different men to the girls, and it's like, he's a butcher. You'll have a good life. And he's old and he's horrible and nobody wants to marry him, but you'll have a good life. There is not a Tradwife on the face of the planet who isn't hunting for that good life. And the guy behind the good life doesn't matter that much. She's plundering the goods. He's totally disposable. On that topic, I'm going to do a series of smaller videos on my shorties about how a Tradwife would leave a marriage. And one of the main ways that everyone that I knew ever got divorced was if the woman had an affair and then left for the other man. And that's kind of notorious. Like, think about every country song that you've ever heard. Think about every breakup movie that you've seen. The little country girls who get married at 18 years old and they're these little stay-at-home mommies, they can't leave. They can't file for divorce unless they fall in love with somebody else. And then he's willing to take care of her. So then they leave with him. I left without any other man in the queue, right? Like, I just left. I had to escape. I had to get away. And I became homeless because I had never had a job. And the courts didn't enforce anything. And my ex-husband found a way to not pay anything. Like, I don't have any friends who just like, I'm going to file for divorce and leave and like go get a degree and support myself. If you've been a Tradwife for 10, 20, 30 years, you usually don't leave unless there's another provider, which is very predatory. Man, the very phrase provider man, that is so weird and convoluted and twisted. When did anyone ever think it's okay to have a system where adults are dependent on another adult, like a barnacle on a whale? The men in these systems are being exploited. And nobody notices because these predators, these people doing it, exploiting the viewers, these parasites, these barnacles, they're cute. They're in sundresses. They're milking the cows and baking the sourdough. And they look so sweet. But they're like a mosquito sapping the blood. And then another phrase that's almost kind of like the mirror image of that one is high value woman. Like, I'm such a high value woman that it's worth all of the work that you have to do to provide for everything. Jake paid for everything. I didn't have any income, right? The fact that we're okay with that phrase, high value woman, it's just weird. I have a little story to tell you from Mormon Church College lore. She was a Mormon friend of mine, and her husband was a famous football player, and her son is a famous Mormon football player. She's a personal friend of mine. And I remember asking her one day how she met her husband, and she had met him at BYU, Utah. And I was like, was it love at first sight? And she said it was for me. And she explained how that they had met, and she found out who he was. It was this big star football player for BYU way back in the day, like, I don't even know when, like the 1950s, 1960s. And she said that she knew right then that that was the man that she wanted to marry. She didn't say we had great chemistry. I loved him. I wanted to be with him. She met him. She knew he was a star football player. She knew he came from this amazing family. She knew that he was going to have a great future ahead of him. He did not want to date her, though. So here's what she did. It was only like the second or third day of school. She went and had her schedule changed so that she was in some of his classes. And then she tracked his schedule, and she would just pop up all over campus all the time and just be there like, hey, how's it going? It's me. And walk down the sidewalk with him and start conversations. And it took her like a year and a half of doing this until he started to warm up to her. And that was the phrase that she used. She's like, yeah, it took him a long time to start warming up to me. How is this not stalking? And you guys, this story could be like all of my Mormon friends, all of them. So eventually they got married and their son became a famous football player. And it sounds like this cute little story when she's telling it, right? But is it really? And then the men are just all hormonal and fired up, and they want that mom with benefits. So they're also chasing back, but they're chasing somebody that they're going to have to provide for. And they know that. They know I'm going to have to buy this person's toothpaste, buy their gas that they put in their car. I'm going to have to pay for everything that this woman wants for the rest of my life. So there is a little bit more hesitation from the male side. I hope that sheds a little bit of light on the predatory nature of these Tradwives. And that was me. I was on the hunt for an eternal companion. And unfortunately, I was then forced into a marriage with a man that I did not know, that I would not have married had that sequence of events not lined up. And so I didn't get to pick my perfect partner, and I was instead married to somebody who hated me for 24 years. And then that all came crashing to the ground. But I hadn't completely changed. People don't change overnight. So after my divorce, I was on the hunt once again for the dream man to take care of me, because that man was going to be what got me out of post-divorce poverty, right? But then I ended up with a kink in my plan because I fell in love with a school teacher. And I was so lucky to meet Kevin. He's actually why I am who I am and what I am today. Once again, it's not like I got all inspired and was like, yes, I'm never going to be Tradwifey again. No, I got pushed into it. Like, change is really hard. That's my partner today, Kev. When Kev and I first met, I was still fully Tradwifey. Like, I was having a hard time getting a job, and I didn't have a college degree or anything. So I was only dating the millionaires. I was once again looking for somebody to provide for me after my divorce, like a lot of women in these communities have to do. And I have to tell you guys about this little moment that Kevin and I had. When I had been dating all of like the millionaire bad boys after my divorce, they would always tell me how they were going to take care of me. Like, oh, I'll take such good care of you, baby. And they were always paying for all the meals and stuff and like spoiling me. Well, algebra teachers can't do that. So here's what Kevin said. He said, I want to do life side by side. He was training this little former Tradwifey how to be a partner. And I started crying the first time he ever said that to me. And it was absolutely beautiful. So because I fell in love with an algebra teacher, I had to step out of a man being my plan. I was forced out of marriage as a transactionship and ease into love and partnership as a relationship. Transactionships are actually the worst. And for women like myself who are stuck in these patriarchal Tradwife systems, who are always hunting the rich boys so that they can live their princess lives, you often miss out on that true love connection. I love the quote, you don't see a lot of supermodels on the arms of plumbers, and you should, because some of those plumbers and school teachers and electricians and freelance photographers, they may be your ultimate best partner. But in that patriarchy with the Tradwife situation, if you don't have your own money and you can't provide for yourself, then you can't be with the good guys. You're stuck with the rich assholes. And again, the system of female financial dependency hurts men as well as women. I would hate for my sons to have people wanting to date them just because they thought that they were going to be successful, instead of having that equal partnership where like I'm providing for myself and I just want to be with you because I love you. I want my sons to have relationships, not transactionships. My oldest son, who's almost 29, has been happily married for 5 years, and they both work. They both make similar amounts of money, and they're so happy. And that just changes the whole dynamic. Because I learned to make my own money, I have my little businesses and my social media and thing. My relationship with Kevin isn't about money. Today, I bought myself a little patio table set at a thrift store. I paid for it. If I can't pay rent, it's not Kevin's fault. It's my fault. He's not my sugar baby.
All of this, 4B, single mothers by choice, and even calling out men for their poor behavior on social media, especially as it relates to dating, is mate selection. And mate selection is a feature of matriarchy. Essentially, women are in control of who has access to our bodies and whose children we want to raise. Because under stricter patriarchy, women were forced to buy into the rubric that the patriarchy set for mate selection, that in turn benefited men. Essentially, the patriarchy cut women off from their ability to basically exist on their own. In stripping away women's freedoms, the patriarchy forced women to find a mate that could provide. Otherwise, they'd be homeless or burned at the stake. Now, women are allowed to open up a bank account and to have a job, so we use our own rubric now and select mates who are kind, empathetic, supportive, and could lead to a harmonious, loving marriage and a harmonious, loving family. And in so doing, we're also ending generational trauma of the women who came before us that did not have those freedoms and were often forced into partnerships or motherhood without any support.
Our whole world is about money, and it didn't used to be. And it's really ruined us and made us focus on the completely wrong thing. I can't tell you how many DMs and comments I get from women who don't love their husbands and are stuck. I've done videos. Dear husband, your wife doesn't love you. She loves the house and the 1,000 thread count sheet and the Mercedes in the garage, but she does not love you. And that is not just based on my own experience. That is based on living inside of these communities, being privy to the conversations with so many of my friends and the thousands of women who have sent me DMs asking me what to do because they're not in love and they need his money. My 16-year-old son, he is completely repelled by those girls who seem like they're financially needy. He has a girlfriend. They've been together for a long time, actually. She's amazing. She's currently in cosmetology school, and she has a whole career path for herself. And because we were recovering from homelessness and absolute financial destitution after my divorce, he didn't have the money to be the sugar daddy to his girlfriends. So if they're going to go to the movie, they each have to pay their own way. If they're going to go out to dinner, the girls also have to be able to pay for their own dinner. Because he's my son, she is almost completely immune to these predatory girls. They just completely rub him the wrong way, and he would absolutely never date one of them. I want to end this video with one final thought. Men aren't the problem. Women aren't the problem. The American nuclear family system is. It robbed us of love and is designed to make only the most elite, privileged men at the top rich. The breakup of our extended families and widespread tribal decay was a money maker, and it turned us all into financial predators to one degree or another. And once again, the only way to disrupt this cycle is to dismantle the corporations and return to an overall social system of cooperation. And for us women, we do that by not being financial dependents. A man is not a plan, never has been, never should be. He can be your boyfriend, your fiance, your lover, your husband, your bestie, your life partner, whatever you want him to be. But he's not your golden ticket to the privileged life. Go out and make that for your own damn self. That is how we change the world, ladies. Thanks for watching, and I will very hesitantly be hanging out in the comments to see what you guys think about this one.